The Amazon rainforest covers the eastern third of Ecuador at an average elevation of 300 meters. Then, stretching across the middle of the country, the Andes rise to nearly 6,000 meters above sea level, creating a virtually insurmountable barrier for Amazonian wildlife to cross. On the other side of the Andes, plains running down to the Pacific Ocean provide a more hospitable climate for wildlife. The western slopes are covered by forests with a dense population of animal species, but the environment is wetter and cooler than on the eastern side, and so is inhabited by different species. The upsurge of the Andes Mountains is thus responsible for what is called speciation of the original wildlife. Finally, well off the coast lie the Galapagos, the archipelago whose very isolation gives Ecuador its unique fauna and contributes to the country's mega biodiversity. From the snow-capped peaks of the Andes, the altitude falls sharply to the west, to a lush cloud forest. This part of northwestern Ecuador is home to over 850 species of birds. The male masked trogon relies on his bright plumage to seduce a female. He perches in the sunlight, hoping to draw attention. His less colorful mate is motionless on a branch nearby. That's how she hunts, remaining utterly still, capturing insects that pass within her reach. Wood creepers, on the other hand, are a family of active hunters. They expend more energy in moving, but the effort is rewarded as they capture more food. The red-tailed squirrel is no slouch either when it comes to locating plants. But unlike squirrels in other countries, there's no need to store food for the winter, as food is plentiful all year round. In short, when hunting or gathering food, active or passive, each species has its own approach. Even if there are not really any seasons, the climate can change suddenly over the course of a day. The humidity coming from the Pacific Ocean condenses over the mountains. The clouds soon spread from the valleys to the ridges, and as they cool, they fill the forest with a mysterious fog and mist. The Andean cock of the rock is not one to get lost in the mist. Each day at dawn and dusk, the males return to a specific part of the forest. Then they wait until there are enough cocks of the rock gathered together. They're waiting and hoping for the presence of females, who are much more discreet in their plumage and their behavior. The males now seem to be particularly excited. They do their best to display their feathers in the light. That's because their colors, especially in the ultraviolet range, and therefore invisible to the human eye, provide vital information to females about their overall health and their ability to reproduce. The vigorous courtship display is intended to draw the attention of future mates. The youngest males and others that lack the necessary characteristics will never be chosen by females, but still they take part in the courtship displays, impelled by instinct to follow the leaders. As a general rule, male birds in the tropics have brighter colors than birds from more northern or southern latitudes. Given the huge number of species here, perhaps there's a need to be recognizable, especially in the dense vegetation. Continuing in the cloud forest, but a little lower, around 2,000 meters above sea level, the crimson-rumped toucanet also displays his beautiful colors. He can find water to quench his thirst in the epiphytic plants, well above the forest floor, that hang like feeders for both birds and frogs. Toucanets often build their nests in abandoned woodpecker nests. At the end of the breeding season, both parents feed their young. Even if the toucanet is primarily a fruit eater, chicks sometimes refuse what their parents bring and prefer insects, which are richer in protein. Still, the fruit will not go to waste. Even after hatchlings have flown the nest, some continue to beg for food, as is the case with the plate-billed mountain toucan. This adult is probably hoping to feed in peace, but one of the youngsters, although already a sub-adult, steals the fruit right out of his parents' beak. Toucans are energetic, expressive, and extremely loud. They make no attempt to be inconspicuous, as they have few predators, because of the impressive size of their beaks. What's more, yellow-throated toucans often stay high in the canopy, which provides a degree of safety. Living in pairs or in small groups, they spend lots of time socializing. They spend much of their day delousing, playing, bickering, and sometimes sparring. A related species, the choco toucan, is distinguished by its darker lower beak. They sometimes occupy the same forests and feed on the same trees. They carefully select fruits for ripeness and swallow them whole. Their droppings will spread the seeds further away, thus contributing to the regeneration of the forest. The long-wattled umbrella bird feeds a little higher up, indifferent to the presence of the toucans. What looks like a necktie, the long wattle of feathers hanging under his throat, is specific to the adult male. He can inflate it to attract females during courtship displays. When food is plentiful, birds are more willing to share the same resource. Birds aren't the only animals that help to disperse plant species. Rodents, like this female Central American agouti, also sustain the forest by scattering seeds in their droppings. Highly vulnerable when in the open, she knows she can rely on her streamlined body profile to quickly burrow into the thickest cover to escape from danger. Before allowing her young to join, she conscientiously inspects the feeding grounds, often at the base of trees where birds are feeding. And she will remain particularly alert until her young return to the safety of the underbrush. Many species enjoy the fruit of wild avocado trees, none more than the golden-headed quetzal, which routinely feasts on their fruit, the avocatillo. The spectacled bear also loves these small, fat-rich fruits. These females spend most of her time in the high-altitude valleys, over 3,500 meters above sea level. But for 3 or 4 weeks in October, she descends to feast on the fruit of the wild avocado trees. She'll hoist her body, some 70 kilograms, up these thin branches where the avocatillos grow. Her keen sense of smell leads her to the ripest fruits, which she selects one by one. And when she can't reach the very tip of the most heavily laden branches, she breaks them off and lets them fall to the ground, where she can eat them later. Tired by her acrobatic exertions, she takes a break to digest. The spectacled bear is the only bear species found in South America. Today, it is the most endangered species of bear, with only a few thousand individuals still living in the wild. Only 1/3 of its habitat in Ecuador is designated as a protected area, and this habitat is surrounded by zones of rampant deforestation. Clearing to make way for farmland is especially a danger, because the spectacled bear is considered a threat to crops and thus falls victim to poaching. In any event, as evening falls, this young female can still enjoy these fleeting moments of peace and serenity. At sunset, between 2 showers, the sun sometimes shows through the clouds briefly before sinking below the horizon. Then it fills the haze with a range of stunning colors, from orange to pink to purple, in just a few minutes' time. Once darkness falls, predators and prey play a game of hide and seek. With their transparent skin and organs, glass frogs may be harder to detect, but they too must find a mate, which is what this male frog is doing with its loud mating calls. At the edge of the forest, a common potu also begins his mating song. At daybreak, deep in this canyon, there is a strange aerial ballet. The light barely reaches the ground here. That suits this small colony of oil birds just fine. These cave-dwelling birds like the darkness, spending their days in nests deep in caves or in narrow canyons, which provide protection as they sleep. After a night feeding on fruit, each couple returns to its nest. To navigate in the dark, not only do oilbirds have highly sensitive retinas, but they are also the only bird species to use echolocation, like bats. Their broad wings allow them to fly slowly, with time enough to detect obstacles. And when dawn breaks, oilbirds can look forward to a well-earned day of sleep. Other creatures are particularly fond of the sun's rays. Butterflies, bright and colorful, flying from flower to flower throughout the day. By sucking up nectar from deep inside flowers, they play a vital role as pollinators. With its 12-centimeter wingspan, the Hellenor's blue morpho is one of the largest diurnal butterflies. The female lays her eggs one by one in the hollow of a leaf. 10 days later, the caterpillar hatches and ventures over leaves that it will feed upon. With each successive molt, it grows rapidly, continuously changing its colors. After 2 to 3 months, its last molt transforms the caterpillar into a chrysalis. After 15 days without food, the butterfly finally reaches maturity. That's when the morpho is most vulnerable. It cannot fly until its wings have dried. And then, the Hellenor's blue morpho finally appears free from the force of gravity. This beautiful butterfly with metallic blue wings now has a lifespan of only 1 to 3 months, time to feed, to pollinate, and most importantly, to reproduce. Hummingbirds are barely larger than a butterfly, just as colorful, and they, too, love nectar from flowers. With only a few exceptions, the species living on the western side of the Andes are different from those on the eastern side. Like many birds, they can distinguish a broader spectrum of colors than the human eye, especially wavelengths in the ultraviolet region. They're particularly attracted by blossoms in the oranges and reds. After untold generations of feeding on the same families of flowers, hummingbirds' beaks have evolved. Various species have evolved beaks of different lengths and curvatures. Species thus tend to specialize in specific flowers, allowing the available food resources to be shared among the species. Because genuine congestion can arise around the flowers with the most readily accessible nectar. Hummingbirds are perfectly skilled in hovering. Some species can flap their wings up to 80 times every second. They can move with such speed because their brain and nervous system can perceive their surroundings almost instantaneously. And their hearts are capable of reaching 1,000 beats per minute. Hummingbirds are fascinating for their physiology and their elegance. Moving further west, the foothills of the Andes plunge down toward a vast coastal plain. The humidity from the Pacific Ocean moves inland and maintains continuous moisture for plant life. The forest becomes even more mysterious with the call of the mantled howler monkey. This large arboreal monkey uses its prehensile tail to maintain a secure posture when feeding or resting. Females are identifiable by their light-colored coat, while young males are darker before becoming almost black. Howlers live in small groups with about 10 members, including the dominant older male, 2 or 3 other males, the females, and their young. Mantled howlers are particularly fond of fruits to supplement their usual diet of leaves, which are poor in nutrients and difficult to digest. That's why they pay so much attention to the fruit trees, coming each day to inspect the same branches for ripe fruits and picking the best, with acrobatic moves if need be. Each group of howler monkeys tries to demarcate its territory to include the areas richest in food. This is done by the males, who stake out their claim against the other groups. These impressive cries are amplified by the hyoid bone, located near the vocal cords, which is enlarged in males. The calls can be heard for several kilometers around and serve to keep the different groups of howler monkeys apart by marking their respective positions. The aim is to prevent any physical confrontation, as howler monkeys are not really fighters. On the contrary, their low-energy diet tends to make howlers somewhat sluggish. They like nothing better than to spend all day resting and digesting in peace. On the other hand, younger howler monkeys have energy to spare. Playing in the trees increases their dexterity as they train to avoid falling, if they can. With all this commotion, the adults are unlikely to have much of a nap. At a slightly lower altitude, the air is rich with the salty ocean spray, and the vegetation suddenly changes. This is where the Pacific meets the land, where the cliffs resist the onslaught of the waves. In this wet, gray climate, this family of yellow-crowned night herons has the beach to itself. They wait for the tide to go out to fish for shellfish and crustaceans. This beach may look like the end of the world, and yet, beyond the gray wall of the horizon, Ecuador harbors yet another ecological treasure, listed as a World Nature Heritage Site by UNESCO. A fully protected sanctuary for animal species that are unique in the world, the Galapagos Islands. The archipelago is located 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador. The island's volcanic origin is obvious. These are craters that have emerged from the seas. Lava flows have sometimes merged to form a single island. The most recent islands in the west are only 1 million years old, and some of their volcanoes still erupt from time to time. This is why the lava flows have little or no plant cover. The landscape is rugged and austere, apparently not particularly suitable for sustaining life. These lava fields hold pools of brackish water, enough to attract birds. Small groups of American flamingos come here often, filtering food from the mud and water. These islands were formed too recently and are too isolated to have been colonized by land mammals. The volcanic rock seems lifeless until it reaches the sea. Because red rock crabs are swarming at the water's edge. They can't really be discreet with their beautiful multicolored shells as they scramble over the lava blocks with a mix of caution and boldness, unlike any other species. They're especially careful when they encounter other creatures along the coast. Falling into the water, they could easily end up in the jaws of a shark. Red rock crabs can be scavengers when the opportunity arises, and thus help to clean the shores. But most often they're content with the small algae they pick up from the rocks. When the water is cold, they warm themselves in the sun. Under the sea spray, where the waves break over the rocks, the ocean temperature is no higher than 17 degrees Celsius during the season. While the Galapagos are situated close to the equator, they are influenced by the cold Humboldt Current, flowing from the South Pacific. But the islands are periodically affected by various warm currents as well. The convergence of these ocean currents creates a unique set of weather conditions unlike those of any other tropical islands. Except for 3 small towns, these islands are totally unspoiled. They host large colonies of birds, such as these magnificent frigate birds. The males are black with a red membrane under the throat, while females and immature birds are lighter in color. Frigate birds are agile in flight, with a 2-meter wingspan, flying low over the waters as they fish. Their plumage is not waterproof. They cannot dive or even swim. Each couple has a single chick, which both parents care for during its first 5 months when it stays in the nest. To attract a mate, Each male builds the most beautiful nest he can, settles in, and inflates his guller sac, the red pouch under his beak. Then they vie for the attention of the females as they fly overhead. Males compete fiercely for the best nesting sites. Espanola Island is practically the only nesting place of the waved albatross, also called the Galapagos albatross, which is classified as a critically endangered species. Couples mate for life, but still perform their ritual courtship dances every year. The albatross nests on the ground, between rocks, without building a secure nest. When the egg rolls and is trapped under a rock, it's harder to incubate. But fortunately, albatrosses won't give up and do their best to keep the egg warm. The marine iguana begins its day by warming in the sun. It needs a body temperature of around 38 degrees Celsius for its muscles to function best. Its dark skin quickly absorbs the sun's rays. Then it heads to the shore to graze on the algae that make up most of its diet. But this menu is pretty meager, so the marine iguana ventures into the water at low tide to seek more food in the ocean. Unfortunately, the algae it's interested in grow mostly in the cold season. Even if other iguana species can swim, only the marine iguana can dive and can easily hold its breath and stay underwater for 10 minutes at a depth of 5 meters. Its powerful tail and legs with claws let it fight against the current and waves, while its small scales protect against scratching on the rocks. The iguana stays in the water for only 10 minutes, so its body temperature falls no more than 10 degrees Celsius. Back on the shore, with a full belly, the marine iguana looks slow and sluggish. The overcast sky means they can't warm up quickly by basking in the sun, but by huddling together, they can regain a little warmth. At regular intervals, marine iguanas seem to spit. What they are doing is sneezing out salt, which is filtered from their blood by their salt glands. Some may go for another swim late in the day. Marine iguanas are good swimmers and excellent climbers. Yet when Charles Darwin wrote about his time in the Galapagos, he described them as large, most disgusting, clumsy lizards. The marine iguana has evolved considerably from its terrestrial ancestor over the past 4.5 million years, during which time they have evolved the abilities needed to survive on these shores. And as they fall asleep on the sun-warmed rocks, they seem in perfect harmony with their environment. The day now breaks on Santiago Island. The din of the birds is a rousing wake-up call for this young Galapagos sea lion, born just a few days ago. The other members of the small colony are getting a few more minutes' sleep. Waking on an empty stomach, this young sea lion is demanding to be fed. Females give birth to 1 cub each year on average, but for a variety of reasons, only half of them survive beyond 2 years of age. One threat to the species is the dwindling supply of fish that they feed on, which El Niño brings warmer ocean currents. This forces sea lions to fish further offshore and at greater depths, where they encounter more predators, such as sharks. Sea lions are quite territorial. They live in small colonies made up of either a dominant male and his harem, or only single males. As is often the case with highly gregarious, social species, young sea lions spend a lot of time playing, which prepares them for fishing and for fighting as adults. And what could be better than diving into the ocean? Even when they're on their own, a sea lion always finds something amusing to do. But with 2 or more, there's a genuine water ballet. Iguanas and sea lions live in perfect harmony and even share the best diving spots with the Galapagos penguins. These birds are much smaller than their Antarctic counterparts because they don't need fat reserves to resist the extreme cold, even if they depend on the cold, fish-rich waters of the Humboldt Current. Yet, once again, El Niño and global warming are threatening the penguins by interfering with the cold Humboldt Current, and thus their food supply. The same danger threatens the flightless cormorant. Their wings have become smaller with evolution. Here on these islands, they serve no purpose, as there are no predators to flee from. And unlike penguins that use their wings for swimming, flightless cormorants use only their legs to swim. This avian morphological evolution demonstrates that nature is capable of adapting to change. But once again, this requires tens of thousands of years or even longer. The current rate of climate change is far too rapid for the adaptations needed for the survival of threatened ecosystems to occur without irreversible damage. Mangroves are under threat in every tropical region of the world, yet mangroves are vital. Here in the Galapagos, on Isabella Island, they are a haven of peace for the green sea turtle. The newborn turtles develop in these calm waters before venturing out into the open sea. Here, the turtles find enough algae to feed on and can also meet other turtles. What about the notion that green turtles living in the sea somehow adapted to life on land, to the point of evolving into the celebrated Galapagos tortoises? No, in fact, that didn't happen. That hypothesis was false, as genetic analysis of both species has confirmed. So how did land tortoises come to live on these islands? The most likely explanation is that their ancestors were swept into the sea by storms and carried here by the Humboldt Current. Able to survive for days without drinking, some would have washed up alive on these shores, and their reproductive instinct would have done the rest. The same reproductive instinct seems to be driving the male tortoise on the right. But after checking, it turns out that the other tortoise is also a male. So he's not welcome and he's in the way. In this case, the smaller of the two is forced to yield. This blue-footed booby would also like to attract a mate. He is collecting twigs to lay out a nest. Then it's time to capture the attention of females flying in the vicinity. This mating display consists in showing off his bright blue feet. The deep blue color is a sign of health, a decisive argument for female boobies. A brood typically consists of 2 or 3 chicks. The parents take turns to incubate and then feed them, diving for fish and then regurgitating. If there isn't enough food for all, only the firstborn is fed. Red-footed boobies build their nests in trees. They need to find just the right materials for their nests, even if both of them have to work together. The problem is that everyone wants the same twigs. Swallow-tailed gulls avoid that problem altogether by not using twigs and branches, which are relatively scarce on the most arid islands. They simply gather small shells and pebbles in a depression, so their single egg won't roll away. The chick is fed by parents regurgitating, but when the prey is too large, like this squid, adults will keep it for themselves. Most of these seabirds nest in colonies where they all stay together, but some couples, like these Nazca boobies, may prefer to perform their mating ritual away from the others. The setting sun brings an end-of-the-world sensation to the Galapagos Islands. Ecuador is indeed a world apart, rich with its forests, mountains, and shores. These exceptional ecosystems deserve to be preserved, especially here in the Galapagos, where the animals live in harmony with one another, in complete freedom, without the least fear of humans. The only concerns these pelicans have seems to be finding a mate, building a nest, and of course feeding. But even if these unspoiled areas are being protected locally, the threat they face is on a global scale. Climate change is affecting the cold water currents that carry food to these islands. Nature, of course, has the power to adapt, to evolve, and even to give rise to new species. But this takes time. And for now, what's happening is the opposite. Species are disappearing hundreds of times faster than in the last 65 million years. And this is causing a vicious circle, because the less variety there is, the more fragile ecosystems become. Ecuador's biodiversity today seems truly extraordinary, but it is just the result of nature in action. In fact, what would be even more extraordinary would be for us to find the strength to save these ecosystems while there is time, before it is too late.